The next question says, what's your take on upper back rounding in the deadlift? It helps to lengthen the arms, but it makes the lat engagement lockout harder. Does your cue of pushing your shoulder blades toward your back pockets go against this, or can they be combined? I'm asking because I saw a video, and it seems to be reasonable to lengthen your arms to increase power off the floor. It seems to be a reasonable cue to lengthen your arms and increase power off the floor, and that's something that I'm having trouble with. I don't like upper back rounding in the deadlift, or the thought of rounding your upper back in the deadlift, because I find that most people don't have that much control or that much ability to assess. Let's start with assessment. When you're watching someone deadlift and you say, oh, their upper back is rounded, but their lower back is flat, I'm not so sure that people have that ability to x-ray vision through, the lifter's belt and clothes and singlet and musculature and see exactly what's going on with their spinal position. Things like hypertrophy in the upper or lower back can change the way that looks. And I don't think that most people are using tools to track bar path. They're not even able to watch a video and see bar path. So I think that the odds of correctly assessing spinal position through a dynamic movement like a deadlift, I don't think we're as good at that as we pretend to be. And probably a bigger issue than that, so even if you can assess it correctly, I think maybe a bigger issue than that is the problem of control. I don't think most lifters have that much control that they can selectively round their upper back, but keep their lower back neutral under maximal loads. I think what tends to happen is that it's fine and it looks fine on submax loads. And again, assessment issues aside, maybe they're doing it correctly on submax loads, but you're putting a bend in the upper back. And when the weight gets heavy, that's going to bend a bit more, and that bend is going to bleed over into the lower vertebrae. And as the weight gets even heavier, it'll bleed further and further down the chain until basically, upper back rounding turns into whole back rounding, and now you're just a round back deadlifter, And I've talked before how that's not necessarily incorrect, but it is riskier. And you need to understand that and understand what those risks are and understand what that may mean to you in terms of your longer term career and your life in general, because you are taking a more significant risk with your discs. And you just need to understand that and be willing to assume that risk if you want to deadlift in that fashion. And it's for that reason that I don't really recommend it. And the increased arm length, the reduced range of motion, I don't see that as being a particularly big player, because we see plenty of people deadlifting in various styles of shoes that have soles ranging from this thick to this thick to barely anything at all, to weightlifting shoes even. And people have deadlifted big weights with a variety of different shoes and ranges of motion and limb proportions and things like that. So I don't think taking a couple inches off your stroke is going to dynamically transform your deadlift. It may help, but I think if it helps, the reason is more in strength balances than it is in range of motion itself. So if you are a round back deadlifter and you just deadlift more weight this way than a flat back deadlifter, I don't think that it's because it's a reduced range of motion. I think that it's much more likely due to certain strengths and weaknesses that you have. If you're a round back deadlifter, your lockout will be harder. If you're a flat back deadlifter, it will be harder to break the weight off the floor. Now, if you're a flat back deadlifter and that's a inherently weaker position for you, then yeah, you're going to get more out of going to a round back position, but you're also going to assume more risk. Then you have people that are on the other end of the spectrum, like myself. I was a flat back deadlifter, and that was a stronger position for me. When the weight got really heavy, I would gradually round over because I couldn't maintain that position anymore. But that always very quickly led to a miss or an injury. So hence why I kind of stayed where I stayed. I've coached people both directions, but if you are going to be a round back deadlifter, you need to understand the risks involved with it. And I mean, really understand it, because I don't think a lot of people do, and take it seriously. Now, if you're going to be a flat back deadlifter, things are a bit different, and it does dynamically change the movement itself, which is maybe another conversation for another day, but that's kind of my take on that particular cue.